An artist that stops creating art is basically dead. Once you stop creating, you are no longer an artist. An entrepreneur is just like an artist in the sense that, like, if you think, oh, I'm going to get this to $100 million and sell it, like, you're not an artist. You're like trying to color in a coloring book. But an artist will keep painting until the day they die. I think it's very similar to how I'm approaching entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so it's great to have you, Avante, come here back to NYU and talk to us about your journey with Posh. You're the CEO and co-founder, so thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to start with trying to understand a little bit more about you and your journey. I saw on your website and some things online that looks like you've been entrepreneurial your whole life. Can you tell us a little bit about what's motivated you in that entrepreneurial journey?
My parents actually are entrepreneurs, but not in like the normal sense of running billion-dollar startups or anything like that. They're English teachers with English degrees, but instead of going to teach at schools, they have their own personal clients. And I think that kind of just been ingrained in me forever. Is like they work on their own hour, and they always taught me that like I shouldn't I should always go against the grain. And whether or not it's like, being an English teacher or getting product market fit, getting your first user, like I think a lot of the fundamentals they taught me and kind of how I was raised were definitely the kind of key building blocks for like being interested in entrepreneurship and kind of finding my own way in the world and creating value in a way that I felt was meaningful.
And did you ever at all think of like a conventional career path that like, hey, maybe you'd go and become a banker, consultant, etc.?
Definitely. I definitely considered it pretty heavily, frankly. But I think there's a point that you have to get to in a lot of things where it's like, is this right for me? And the answer kept being no. Just from like whether it was a bad grade in a finance class or like, kind of trying to go through the interview process for internships and being like, I don't really, feel like I would belong in these organizations and things. And simultaneously, like you said, I had started a startup, in high school, and I kind of wanted to do it again. So I think the answer just kept being no, and I had to lean into that feeling.
Yeah, okay. We should talk about Posh. Tell us about how you created Posh, where the idea came from, and what it is and what it does.
Yeah, so Posh is an event management platform. It helps anyone host anything from a dinner party all the way to a music festival. And the easy way to think about it is Shopify for events. So you can create a white labeled page. We have integrated marketing tools. You can integrate with third-party marketing tools. And we also manage the entire financial back end of your event experience. And now we're expanding outside of just servicing event organizers, but actually also into servicing event service providers and other stakeholders, so that anyone, whether it's a freelance bartender, freelance videographer, venue owner, etc., can stand up a profile and manage the full stack of their business.
I'm going to surprise you here. So after grad school, I started this event planning thing called Thursday Fair. I went to International Affairs program at Tufts University, and it was part of the international affairs community, people that worked at the UN, worked in NGOs. And so we got this community together through, parties that we threw at lounges. My buddy was a DJ Cliff, shout out to you. So we could have used this app. This would have been really great for us to have. So I definitely appreciate it. Is that the kind of audience that you're attracting, people that are throwing their little micro community parties?
100%. It's in-person paid communities. It's people that are trying to congregate, a mass of, maybe 50 to 500 people on average, around either they share a similar demographic or socioeconomic background or similar interests. And the person who's organizing this community is getting paid basically for bringing these people together. If you're doing that, you can make money, and we're just kind of taking advantage of those community leaders right now who have no tools or have the access to, low quality tools like Eventbrite.
That's fantastic. So one of the things that I focus on in the classroom is the different methods that people use to kick off their entrepreneurial ventures. And there's a lot of emphasis on lead startup. But there's another method called effectuation, where you begin with who you are, what you know, and who you know. To what extent, do you think Posh came out of the things that related to you, like who you are, who you know, what you know?
The highest extent. I think in terms of who you are, right? My dad, as well as being an English teacher, he DJs. He taught me how to DJ at a young age. And actually, the story of Posh is I came to New York for NYU and started DJing around the city to meet people and also just make money in a fun environment. And through those experiences, I was learning a lot about the event industry, just like, probably friend Cliff was. And through those experiences, I actually realized that I didn't want to work for any of the organizers that were booking me because they didn't understand how to satisfy the customers who were my friends that I was bringing to these events. And so my co-founder Eli and I, who was also a freelancer in the space, he was a photographer, banded together and actually started hosting events just like Thursday Affair and using Eventbrite and other products, and realized they didn't meet the mark. And so that's kind of the genesis of the company. So, and what's awesome about that is that was who we were. In terms of who we knew was organizers that we were working with and that were booking us. So those are our first customers. And what we knew was, everything about the industry, from being a DJ or a photographer to organizing an event to the software and entrepreneurial experience we had as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you must have gotten pushback along the way that, wait a second, this is too much tied to your own journey. How do you know that there's a true hair on fire problem amongst your users? You should be doing more like scientific experimentation, like taking the lean approach. To what extent did you use that?
Yeah, I think it definitely was a lean approach from the beginning. I think just a lot of the most impactful startups in history were built by founders solving their own problem. And so that took us enough of the way until we realized that, like, oh my gosh, we have a few thousand customers. Like, clearly we're solving this for a few other people. But this was not like a situation where like we raised, a bunch of money out of nowhere. Like, we really had to prove ourselves along the way. And so, we built the company for almost a year before our first check-in. Then we raised 100K, then worked on that 100K for like another almost a year, then raised 1.5 million. And then like that's when things started picking up. But I think it was really just a lot of like proving ourselves and listening to customers on the product side, which brought us more customers. It's so much more than nightlife. It's just any social gathering, but really showing that it could be more than that was definitely like a good 6-month process that really just required talking to users, listening to them, making the product, the brand voice, a little bit less pigeonholed in nightlife, right, and a little bit more flexible as well. And yeah, I think just hitting your head against the wall enough, you'll finally figure it out.
That's awesome. Given that Posh is so much a part of your passions and interests, how do you distinguish your own identity from the identity of Posh? And like, how have you navigated that as a founder?
I think it's very hard, especially at the early stage, to have a separation of personal identity and especially like self-worth from the success of the company. I think, frankly, it's a super emotional experience, right? Where the KPIs on a daily basis are affecting my emotions, and they have been for 3 years now. And that's definitely not healthy, but I think it also is what can lead to, that fire that you need to really build something that's worth, hundreds of billions of dollars. What we're trying to do is disrupt the entire live events industry and create vertical tooling for every stakeholder involved. And to do that, you have to be extremely obsessed. And so, though it's definitely unhealthy, though there's definitely a lot of friends I've lost along the way who weren't growing or going as hard as me along the way, etc. I think that with those people that I have lost, I've gained a lot of new friends and a lot of new people that I've worked with and advisors and people that support me in my life who are going as hard, if not even harder and more obsessed than me, who definitely are gonna, have the same mindset of like that. Though it may feel unhealthy, that if you have other people around you who are equally as unhealthy and obsessed with their metrics and obsessed with like making a change, then it feels a little bit, more, I guess, at home.
Okay, also on the topic of identity, many founders feel this sense of like imposter syndrome, right? That they're, so when did you feel like you were comfortable calling yourself the founder, the CEO of Posh, and how have you navigated that?
I definitely have always felt comfortable since the beginning because I had started something in the past, like I had said, which actually went through, the NYU entrepreneurship summer program at the eLab, and they definitely helped me kind of understand that 0 to 1, kind of getting to product market fit side of things, so that when I had started Posh, I was already confident in like what I needed to do to get to, you know, the first 6 months, get an MVP to market and things like that, because I'd already done it once before. That's why they say like second time founders are obviously more successful, because they already like kind of, the unknown is a little more known, at least until like the point that they got to in the last journey. And so I definitely was very comfortable with that. But I think what's very interesting now is that I'm now managing a lot of people that are a lot older than me and have a lot more experience and even smarter than me, frankly. And that's what's been the most exciting about this journey at this point, is that I have to always tell myself that I need to hold myself to a higher standard to make sure that these people that are more experienced and smarter than me respect me as the CEO and can get up every day and feel excited to come work, you know, at a company that where they know that I'm at the helm, you know, making a lot of tough decisions that frankly will affect their lives, right? And so I think the biggest kind of imposter syndrome feeling that I may have is just around like, how can I make sure that I'm doing my best to serve these people that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into this company just like me.
So that's fantastic. In regards to how you sounds like you've done a ton of learning along this mission of creating Posh. And I guess I'm curious about what assumptions and beliefs that you had about Posh going into it have turned out to be wrong.
I definitely thought that raising money would be easier than it was. I think that's the biggest one, especially being born into this like post-pandemic era where any company with, you know, crypto or like .ai, you know, which kind of happened more recently, but like was raising on, you know, pre-product ideas. And when we're building in a space that frankly, right, isn't as sexy to the VCs, as well as has had so many companies come and die, right? There's so many companies that have tried to compete with Eventbrite, and frankly, even you know, early advisors, people that we talked to at the beginning, we were like, "What do you think about this?" They're like, "It's been done. It's a nice to have. You're not gonna build features that are that much more impactful than what Eventbrite has, simply because they didn't have enough industry context." Which was definitely, you know, unmotivating at first, but I think it was just keeping true to our own, you know, gut feeling that like there could be something that was 10, 100x better. And now obviously with this new vision, like there really has never been anything built for the other stakeholders outside of the organizer. So I think the biggest thing was just, you know, I thought that everyone would understand the vision that we're building towards just as much as me, right? Because it's like so glaringly obvious to me and my co-founder, but clearly it's like you have to frame the story in a way that makes sense to people that have zero context.
Yeah, so you've used this idea of framing stories, framing the message. Entrepreneurship is a lot about moving from abstraction to something more concrete. So you have this concept, you have this vision, and other people can't see it. And so it's your job as an entrepreneur to make that more and more concrete. Tell me, has that been something that you can think, looking back now, can you think of like early prototypes, early visuals, early artifacts that kind of really help to capture the essence of what you were building and bring people along on that journey?
Definitely. I think from the beginning, frankly, one thing I just, you know, tell everyone is if you're trying to build a software company, you need a technical co-founder at the beginning. Like you just cannot be doing this thing by yourself. But not only should you have someone that's technical, at least if you're non-technical or the technical person, someone needs to be good at design. So I've seen so many products that are a great idea, but like the design and the UI just doesn't look great. And like, it's very hard to wrap your head around it. And I think on the contrary, my co-founder Eli is a design wizard. He was actually at NYU for film. He's a self-taught programmer, but he's also been an artist his entire life, right? Doing photography, design, and things like that. And so the product, whether or not it had great functionality, it looked amazing from the beginning. And because of that, anyone that just saw it understood like, okay, this is going to be something that's easy to use and is, you know, more exciting to be a part of. And so, yeah, I think definitely like being able to design the vision you have is very, very important. And without my co-founder, you know, I don't know if we would have had the success we had early on.
That's fantastic. What advice do you have for students that are, you know, students, young people, folks that are like excited about the idea of becoming an entrepreneur? Maybe they have a venture idea, maybe they are tinkering with something, but really haven't taken that big first step or steps towards being an entrepreneur?
I think the simplest thing to tell people is like, you need to go do it. Like I have so many people that just go ruminate on ideas all day that are in my life, or that frankly used to be in my life, that are no longer because I didn't understand it. And it's like, if people have a great idea but they don't take action on it, then obviously it becomes nothing. And simultaneously, if you have a really bad idea but you take action on it, at least you'll know that it's a bad idea. But I think the biggest thing is just that people need to go act, and like you said, Lean Startup is such a awesome framework for testing out new ideas and just seeing if it's even worth pursuing. But I think really the biggest barrier to entry for anyone that is trying to get into entrepreneurship is themselves, and it's just not going after the ideas with the full intent they need to.
What do you mean it's yourself that's the biggest barrier to entry?
Self-doubt, right? Or lack of self-confidence to think that why me, right? Why can I be the one that's going to go build this idea and bring it to market? And it sounds like a lot of work, right? I've been at this for 3.5 years. I plan to be at it for another 5 to 10 years minimum, right? And it's like, that can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. It's overwhelming for me, right? It's overwhelming for everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you maybe the last question here about purpose. It's clear you're passionate about what you're doing. You're on a purposeful mission to change live event industry. But like, how do you define success, and both professionally and personally?
There was I can't quote it exactly, but there was a great Brian Chesky quote about this. But he said something about an artist that stops creating art, like, is basically dead. Like, once you stop creating, like, you are no longer an artist. And like, an entrepreneur is just like an artist in the sense that, like, if you think, oh, I'm going to get this to $100 million and sell it, like, you're not an artist. You're like trying to color in a coloring book and like fill out like a pre-made goal for yourself. But an artist will keep painting until the day they die. I think it's very similar to how I'm approaching entrepreneurship. Is like, success is like growth, and like that my stripe is a plus and some type of percentage. And like, whether or not that's like 20% month on month, 100%, 1,000,000%, whatever it is, like, as long as we're growing, like, I'm going to be happy and motivated. But there's not necessarily an end goal, because as soon as you put an end goal in your mind, you're not building for the customer and for change. You're building for that personal end goal to go buy your Ferrari or whatever it might be. And like, those are the people that always lose, frankly, in my opinion. Like, we have really smart people, way smarter than me, way more accomplished than me, that are joining because of the vision, right? Not because of me, but because of they are as passionate about these problems as I am. And I think that's what's super exciting. But as soon as the problems become uninteresting, I'd say that's probably where I'd consider us, not successful to an extent.
Wow, that's great. Well, I would say that you're being awfully humble. I think a lot of them probably are coming for your leadership and your passion and your excitement behind the vision. Thanks so much for coming to chat with me today. Looking forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you.